Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. This is Joe with the LSA, and I'd like to welcome all of you to our webinar series. Today's webinar is titled Why All Calls Are Not Created Equal, and will be brought to you by our guest presenter, Blair from DialogTech. During the webinar, feel free to type any questions you have in the question box on your screen, and at the conclusion of the presentation, Blair will address those questions. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Over to you, Blair.
Thanks a lot, Joe, and thank you, everybody, for attending today's webinar. The topic is why all calls are not created equal, how to improve ROI and lower CPL by optimizing for the right call conversion. As was said, my name is Blair Symes. I am the Director of Content Marketing at DialogTech. If you're not familiar with us, we are the providers of the leading call attribution platform for marketers. Since we got a pretty full agenda today, there should be time at the end for some Q&A, but I've got a lot of examples and statistics focused around digital marketing, around some of what customers at DialogTech and different industries are doing to drive not just call conversions, but customers. And, you know, I've got a lot of other examples of what top marketers are doing for search, Facebook, and display as well to drive calls. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. We're starting off with the idea that digital marketing has undergone a profound change. And we're seeing it here at DialogTech for customers across a wide variety of industries. Now, I picked 4 use cases here because I thought they were applicable or most interesting to the LSA audience because we're talking about national marketers doing localized campaigns. But you can see from the left, we're talking about a customer of ours, a very large child tutoring provider, over 700 locations in North America. Right now, we're seeing that 90% of paid search leads are call conversions. 90% of the leads they generate from paid search are calls. A plumbing service with 600 locations, 80% of all digital marketing leads across all channels right now are calls. A healthcare provider with 250 locations in Canada, 86% of their digital marketing leads are calls, and 63% of customers, 63% come from those call conversions. It's an amazing number. And then one of the U.S.'s largest auto dealer groups, right now they're showing that 65% of their digital marketing sales leads are calls, and 22% of callers from these digital marketing campaigns go on to purchase a vehicle, and that's twice as much as web leads. So I like to start off with stuff like that to show really the reality that across a wide variety of industries, call conversions are now either the most important or one of the most important conversions that they generate from digital marketing. Now, why is this? Well, the first reason why is because of the shift to mobile. Marketers are shifting their digital ad spend from targeting desktops and laptops to targeting smartphones and mobile devices. You can see some statistics here from eMarketer, where they're estimating this year that mobile will account for over 65% of all digital ad spend, and that number is growing. So next year, and by 2020, we're talking in the 70s, possibly in the 80 percentile. So that's an amazing number, and you can see how it breaks out across some of the digital channels we're talking about today, from paid search to Facebook and display. The majority, or the vast majority in Facebook's case, of ad spending is now targeting smartphone users and mobile devices. So, of course, it makes sense that that huge influx of digital ad money shifting to smartphones is going to have an impact on how people convert. Smartphones are, after all, still phones, and you can see how some data from analyst firm BI Kelsey bears this out, how people, when they engage with paid search, Facebook, and display advertising on their smartphones, oftentimes want to convert by calling. So you're seeing the numbers. Paid search is still the biggest one with 40 billion call conversions from search ads to U.S. businesses this year. Facebook's in third with 12 billion, and display is in second with 28 billion. Now, what's interesting about this study from BI Kelsey is they estimate that while paid search will continue to be the biggest driver of call conversions from a digital advertising standpoint, Facebook is gaining in terms of the higher growth. So there's a higher growth in calls anticipated next year and the year after from Facebook advertising, while display eventually will be in third place in terms of calls. So you can see on the right, 180 billion calls overall from digital channels to U.S. businesses, 162 billion calls in 2019. So really a staggering growth that we're continuing to see in terms of smartphone call conversions from digital advertising. Now, the top stat of 53% of people, mobile shoppers, call a business across all industries is an important one. But really, if you think about it, there are many industries where, regardless of how they engage with your digital marketing or your offline marketing, people just want to call because a conversation with a real human being is often necessary for people to make a purchasing decision. So you think about insurance, financial services. I obviously said a use case in automotive, healthcare. Across those industries, you're seeing statistics that bear out that people do want to call when they're ready to make a purchase because they need to have that conversation in order to finalize a decision. So calls, very important in the customer journey, whether it's to make a purchase or to make an appointment in order to visit an in-person visit in order to make a purchase. Now, that same analyst firm, B.I. Kelsey, has two different studies here that I thought were interesting. On the left, they've got studies that show that calls convert to revenue, 10 to 15 times more than web leads. People who are calling are much more engaged. They have higher purchasing intent than someone who fills out a web form. It's a live lead you can close right away, so it makes sense. And they say that in the U.S. This year, calls will influence over $1 trillion in U.S. consumer spending. Those phone conversations are helping to drive business. Now, what's interesting on the right is that a different study shows that while calls may be the conversion that's most valuable to most businesses, not every single call is a valuable sales call. You can see how in this study they showed across a wide variety of industries, it averages out to around 19-20% of calls that come into a business are high-quality sales calls. The others may be short calls or accidental calls or calling for basic information or for support or customer service. They're not high-quality sales calls. So what I wanted to talk in today's webinar is to go into some of the data from our customers and show what they're doing, what channels are driving those high-value sales calls for them, and maybe some of the lessons that they've learned in order to do that and optimize performance. So first, in order to do this, I do want to go into a couple strategies that you need to adopt in order to understand which calls from which channels are working for your business, because it varies from industry to industry, customer to customer. There's no one silver bullet that's going to say, yes, if you allocate all your budget to this specific channel to drive calls, you're going to see the biggest increase in ROI for all industries. It varies. So you need to attribute and analyze the call conversions from all of your marketing channels and sources and from your website to know which interactions are driving those good calls for you to optimize on. So I do like to have this slide to express the dangers of not attributing calls for marketing. So, if you're only measuring form fills and you're ignoring call conversions, your CPL, cost per lead, or your CPA, cost per acquisition metrics, it could be off by 50% or more. If you think back to my first slide where I showed you, the majority of those leads from digital channels were calls for each of those industries and businesses. If they weren't getting attribution for those, they're missing a huge bucket of conversions. They're losing intelligence and credit for those. So obviously that's a big problem. If you're using CPL or CPA or other benchmark metrics to determine how to allocate your marketing spend, if you're losing sight of half or more of your conversions, you could be allocating budget to underperforming channels or keywords in search campaigns or ads, offline campaigns, direct mail campaigns. You could be allocating budget to what's really not driving the most bang for your buck. And also as marketers, you can't measure the true ROI of your marketing spend and prove, not just to whether you're trying to prove to your CMO for your particular channel, if you're in a large business where perhaps you're just in charge of paid search, you're just in charge of display, or if you're trying to prove to your board of directors, your executive team, what your ROI is of the marketing dollars they're giving to your budget, or if you're trying to prove, if you're a digital agency, for example, to your clients, the impact of your campaigns and ads on their business. If you don't allocate, if you don't attribute calls from your campaigns, you're missing a huge chunk and you're doing your marketing a great disservice. So with that being said, obviously the way to you should use call attribution to measure your true CPL and ROI. And if you're not familiar with call conversion, it works really by tracking calls from any channel, ad, keyword, landing page. So somebody interacts with the call button in your paid search ad or in your Facebook ad, and they call you, or they click on from organic search or from paid search or from a display ad over to your website, hunt around and make a call. Call attribution gives you, all that data tied to each call, to each conversion. So you can see which channels, ads, keywords, landing pages, website experiences are driving the most calls to your business. And you can then do some real measurements around CPL and ROI. So there's a wealth of data that you should capture, depending on your industry, around calls. These are the 3 buckets that we recommend. So obviously the first bucket is the marketing source or interaction that drove the call, whether it's the marketing channel, say calls from search or display or direct mail or email, or the specific campaign or ad variation that drove that call. If it comes from search, the search keywords for paid search that the person searched on is obviously extremely valuable to know. And obviously the web pages they viewed, so where they came onto your site, the pages that the journey they took through your website, and the ultimate conversion point that triggered the call is extremely valuable for marketers to know. There's also information to capture around the call and the caller. So the caller's name and phone number, as well as their past call activity, could be very instructive when you're looking to analyze performance of a campaign. The caller's geographic location or the day and time of the call are great things for you to optimize on, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And of course, the last bucket, the conversation. This is the final piece. So what actually takes place on the calls your marketing is generated, what is being said, and who's saying it, which locations or sales agents are these calls going to. Did the call actually result in a conversion? Was it a good call, whatever a good call is for your business? Again, all of these buckets are things that marketers are now using in order to better understand, measure, and optimize their campaigns at a very granular level. So let me go into a quick story about one of our clients. This is one of the largest automakers in the world, a Fortune 50 company. They came to us because they didn't know they didn't know if their digital and mobile advertising and website was driving calls. So they used digital ads to drive auto shoppers to a wide network of dealerships. They've got over 1,300 dealerships in North America alone, and they use digital marketing to drive people to their website, to find a car they're interested in, and then find a dealership near them and call that dealership. But they had attribution around the online journey, but not when somebody made that offline move to call a dealer. So here's what they're doing now in order to capture conversions and get proper attribution around calls. Now, I recommend this setup for most large businesses. Basically, you can see at the top one, when somebody, a vehicle shopper, visits their website from search or any other digital channel and calls a dealership, they're capturing this automaker is capturing the complete data that we talked about before around the marketing source, the call, and the caller. They're feeding that information into Adobe Analytics. Maybe for your business you use Google Analytics, Universal Analytics, whatever analytics platform you have. You can also feed your call data into there to get a complete view of the online and offline customer journey. And then they're feeding that data into their CRM system in order to track, not just track calls from the marketing source all the way through to an actual purchase. And you can see on the bottom some of the great things they're doing with that data. So on the left, now that this company knows the channels, ads, keywords, and campaigns driving web visits and calls, they can use that data to optimize for their spend for what's driving the best ROI. They're tracking the initial web page the caller came to, their path through their website, and then the ultimate page that drives the conversion. Their web team is using that data to optimize the website experience to get more people to call by adding more phone numbers or shifting around some design elements in order to generate what's generating the most calls. And then ultimately they know which callers for which sources are going on to buy a vehicle, and they're using that data to optimize digital advertising performance. So some great results that we've seen already this year. They've been able to prove that calls from their marketing convert to vehicle sales 3 times more than web leads. They know how to optimize marketing and website activity to drive a steady increase in calls. And you can see how the big increase in calls they had in June was able to translate to a July vehicle sales record. So it was an amazing story they used just by getting a handle and visibility into the call channel. So let's go into now some other customer stories and things that our customers are learning by analyzing the types of call data that we talked about already. So 2 examples from the insurance industry that I thought were interesting. At the top, you can see from one of the largest global insurance providers. So they did some interesting measurements to show that 11% of web visitors from paid search convert to a phone call, and they compared that to organic search visitors where only 3% convert to a phone call. So why is this interesting? If you have this data, you can start doing some comparisons around, okay, so what is driving these paid search conversions? What is the experience of somebody coming in from a paid search ad to that landing page that is somehow doing a better job of driving a call conversion than someone who's coming in via an organic search? And is it that paid search people are just have a much higher purchasing intent than organic search people? And if that's the case, perhaps they can make some interesting budget allocation decisions in order to capture more of those valuable calls. The example on the bottom is another insurer. This is a large U.S. health insurer, and there you can see from this year they've looked at how the growth of calls from paid search from the 2 major search engines they invest in, Google and Bing. And you can see how the volumes are obviously much greater in Google, but what was interesting is that they can also see how the growth in calls from month to month is also much higher in Google. So now they know, okay, maybe I should allocate more of my budget to Google. What am I doing in Google that I'm not doing in Bing that is driving call conversions? What lessons can be learned in order to bring those call conversions from Bing up? All great stories and data points they could use once they have a handle on call attribution like we talked about earlier. Here's another example. One of the biggest cruise lines in the world. They are using our call data for search, for example. Here you can see on the left, 60% of the calls that come into that they're generating from search are coming from organic search versus paid search. So the large volumes of traffic from search, the majority is coming from organic versus paid. However, if you look on the numbers on the right and you start looking at actually how those leads are converting, or how those calls are converting to leads, you can see that a much higher percentage of paid search call conversions convert to leads rather than organic search. So all of a sudden, that sort of bears out the same example as the one earlier in insurance, that people who are coming in from paid search are either much more interested in converting to a lead, or better leads, or you're doing something in that experience from the landing page that you're driving people to on paid search, or the experience you're having is doing a better job in converting callers to leads. Now, this is the same customer, but we're taking it a step further. Now, we're not just talking about call to lead conversion, we're talking about call to revenue conversion from organic search versus paid search. And what you can see here is that, again, while organic search gets most of the calls, the paid search call, the value you're getting, the revenue you're generating from paid search is greater per call. So they've been able to show that, a call from organic search, any call from organic search is worth about $2 to their business, and any call from paid search is worth $2.50. Calls that are 7 minutes or greater, longer calls, usually indicative of a better, higher quality sales lead. Those calls are, while it's $4 per call in organic search, the value to them is $5 paid search. Again, paid search calls are much more valuable. You can see the average booking in the third bullet that bears this out. By getting this kind of data, you can see now, okay, maybe I need to better allocate, see how much budget I want to allocate towards paid search. And those are the channels driving the most conversions, the most true lead conversions and the highest value. You can also see the longer calls. Maybe you want to optimize on those keywords, ads, paid search campaigns driving longer calls because those are the ones that are more valuable. So again, all this is great data that you can use in your business in order to decide that all calls are not equal, which ones you should be optimizing on and how. Another example, again, I'm trying to pick ones that are relevant to the local search association community, people doing large national marketers doing localized campaigns. Here's one for Auto Services Center with over 1,000 franchisee locations. So the 3 data points in the bullets on the left, they're able to, they went into the data and they saw that 12% of paid search callers convert to customers. They then saw that the average revenue per call from paid search is $250. They have those 2 data points, knowing how many conversions they're driving from paid search as well as the value of those. But then they also showed that, they used our data to show that 11% of those callers were abandoning their call because they weren't being answered. So they were going to these franchisees. These franchisees were not getting to the phone in time, answering the call in time, and they were getting abandoned. And that is a huge issue if you think about how, each call, each customer from a call from paid search is worth $250. You can see on the right, you can start as a marketer doing some real interesting strategy optimization using this data. So if you can increase your paid search calls by 10% while simultaneously reducing missed calls by 25%, you can see how that revenue jumps. And you can see what that means for 50% reductions in calls or a 20% increase in paid search calls. So you can really start seeing, if I allocate more budget to paid search while working with franchisees to make sure that they answer those calls, what kind of bump in revenue that could mean for them. A second data point on the bottom, which I thought was interesting, they looked at all of their calls, and it says that from paid search, the top 20% of locations get 4 times more calls than the bottom 20. So they look at all the calls to all their locations, and it's very top heavy in terms of calls. So you could drill in then and see, well, what am I doing in paid search for those specific locations that's working so well? What can I do to help do a better job with budgeting, with advertising, with paid search optimizations for those lower halves to get those call volumes up to where they should be. So let's drill into some examples of customers of ours as well as other top marketers are doing from each of the digital channels to drive calls. So when we're talking about Facebook, the biggest thing you can do, obviously, most of the calls, all those billions of calls we talked about earlier, most of them are coming when somebody clicks on your Facebook ad, goes to your website or landing page, and then calls and converts from there. So if you're looking to drive callers from Facebook, the biggest thing to do is to get them to visit your website first, optimize that experience to drive calls. So here are some examples of effective campaigns to drive calls. Here's one from Sylvan Learning. You can see, basically, when you offer an incentive in your ad in Facebook, that usually works best to drive an immediate call. So Sylvan here says, they list their starting price, $99 a month. Weston here offers you your 4th night free. The Castle Buick here says get free oil changes and tires for life, when you convert. That's 50% off MSRP. So again, to get somebody to stop what they're doing, they're browsing their Facebook newsfeed and convert, it helps to have some kind of incentive. It also helps to target smartphone users near your location. So I hope if you, assuming all of you are interested in local marketing, since this is LSA, it's interesting to see that not all mobile devices are created equal in terms of driving localized conversions. So smartphone users are 3 times more likely to make a purchase based on location proximity than tablet users. Smartphone users care more about the location of the business that they're seeing advertisements for than do tablet users. So you can see the bottom how this breaks out by certain key industries, from insurance to senior care, retail, hotel. These are studies that show that people expect when they do business with each of these industries to have that agent or hotel or dealership or store within a certain miles of their location. So for Facebook, you can geo-target people based on smartphone users based on where they are to show your ads, your localized ads, to people who are, within the area that makes most sense to attract them for your specific industry. You can also target people based on life events. A very popular and, one of Facebook's big advantages is that they know these events. So, for example, here are some examples from the insurance industry that I like, where whether someone has a new baby or graduates from college, gets engaged, or is buying a new home. These are all moments that Facebook can capture for many of its members. You can target people with ads specific to really personalize ads that speak to those people to drive those conversions and calls. You can also use the carousel format, which is becoming quite popular, specifically in automotive, in travel and hospitality, in retail. I'm seeing a lot of it. These are the industries where you're able to show, a sort of a showcase of different images, different calls to action in order to drive a conversion. Now, Facebook says that these carousel ads have drive 30 to 50% lower cost per conversion than single image ads, but I think they are great things to test in order to drive people to an optimized landing page to drive those calls. Video ads, of course, you can't, if you're in marketing, it's hard to avoid seeing articles these days about the growth of online video and how important it is to advertising. There's a study that shows from Adobe that shoppers that view videos are almost 2 times more likely to purchase than non-video viewers. If you're going to use these video ads in Facebook, I would recommend CTA buttons to drive calls with Book Now, Contact Us, Sign Up, Shop Now, or Get a Quote. These are the buttons that I'm seeing driving the most calls specifically from videos and from newsfeed ads as well. Of course, we'd be remiss if you said you didn't want to, if you're looking to drive calls from local advertising, not to use the call button. Honestly, I'm not seeing as much of this yet in Facebook, but there are certain industries where it is being used successfully. Here's an example: Mattress Firm, a large retailer, I think, if not the biggest and one of the biggest mattress retailers in North America. They have ads where they have the Call Now button, and you can see, if you're going to use the Call Now button, since people are going to be calling and not visiting a website first, I recommend having some kind of offer like Mattress Firm does here, with free financing, the free setup and removal. Also it's 4th of July sale, so there's a limited time element to this specific promotion. So encouraging people to call now because this promotion will end soon. So let's move on to some tips for display to drive calls and sales. So again, as I said earlier, smartphones are still phones, so you can use calls as one of the main calls to action in your display ad campaigns. You can see how Dish is doing it here, but we've seen it across many industries, including insurance, financial services, retail, where you can actually just include the call. And even though someone doesn't click on this ad and trigger a call, it does set up the expectation of someone who's visiting to get them to call. And you can see how their particular landing page does not have a form immediately available. It has instead a big Call Now button. So you're setting up the expectation of someone to call you when they come to your landing page. You've got a prominent Call Now button available to drive that conversion. Now, offering an incentive to act, I think, is more important in display than any other channel, because people who are seeing your display ads really are not actively looking for you at that moment. They're scrolling through an article on CNN.com, like I was here, or they're playing in an app. Whatever they're doing, they're not actively looking for your business. So to drive a conversion immediately from a display ad, have that expectation, have that offer here, like the 2-year TV price lock. You can also use call data in your display ad targeting, which I think has become a very interesting way to drive calls from display. So you can integrate call data. Some of our customers are doing this now with data management platforms or demand-side platforms, the platforms you're using to target and optimize your display advertising campaigns. You can use call data from really any marketing channel to help get your display ads in front of people most likely to call. So you know that these people, people have a history of calling. You know the characteristics of the people that have a history of calling. You can expand your reach to target similar people with display ads who are more likely to call, and then optimize your ad campaign and landing pages to capture that call conversion. You can also retarget specific people who have a history of calling you, so it makes sense. I like this example because this is one that worked on me specifically. I am getting married in a couple weeks, and when I was researching for my honeymoon, I went to Sandals and I gave them a call to start investigating options for honeymoon destinations. I did not convert on that initial call. However, I started getting ads, as you see in the middle, on my smartphone from Sandals to save 60% off, and an air credit and more if I converted. So I ended up actually doing that. I ended up locking in that deal for my honeymoon in 2 weeks, thanks to this display ad campaign. So I do love to say that, but it is interesting where if someone has a history of calling you and you're a business that values repeat callers, repeat customers, you can retarget based on the callers with that history, and then have an ad campaign that's optimized to generate that call. Again, LSA, you guys are all about local, so I wanted to have certainly a tip around hyper-localizing your display ads. Here is a customer of ours, Comfort Keepers, very large senior care provider in North America. You can see they localize all of their display ads with localized phone numbers and localized locations. So it's important to have those localized phone numbers because they have been proven to convert up to 3 times more than toll-free numbers if you're talking about somebody looking to do business locally. So having those in your ads on your landing page is important. Sending people to a hyper-localized landing page based on each of those, based on who you're advertising to, geo-targeting the smartphone user and then having something near them is very effective for Comfort Keepers. So I wanted to go into a couple search ad strategies as well to drive phone calls. One of the important search ad strategies to drive conversions from search is to do some of the display and Facebook advertising techniques that we talked about earlier. Because people who might not convert directly from a Facebook or display ad, but they saw it, they are much more likely to do a branded search for you and then convert after that search. So you can see different statistics from different studies from Yahoo and Facebook to show that people exposed to your display and Facebook ads, while maybe not converting immediately, are more likely to convert via the search channel, the paid search channel. So it's very important to not just see calls coming in from one channel and think, okay, this is the only conversion path that I should invest in. The other ones do drive conversions as well. And DialogTech customers, for example, we can also prove that calls, people who saw your display ads, even if they didn't convert, they did convert from search. We can also tie that allocation back to that call attribution back to the display ad. So obviously use call extensions. This is a no-brainer. I hope everyone knows this already, but it's important that I reiterate it. Use call extensions in your search ads to drive calls. There's tons of data that supports that people, definitely in certain industries, but really across the board, are likely to and want to be able to call you directly from that call button in a search ad. And even if they don't, search ads with call extensions are more likely to drive a click and a conversion on a website than non-call extension ads. So again, I hope everyone knows this already, but it's very important to use call extensions. Here's some examples I picked the travel and hospitality industry specifically, but when you're looking to drive call conversions, it's not just about the call extensions. You can optimize your language and what your ad campaign shows to help drive campaign conversions from mobile shoppers. So studies show that price, online reviews, and amenities are the top 3 things that mobile travel and hospitality shoppers are looking for. So here are some examples of ads that are taking advantage of that by optimizing with a great offer or links to their amenities, or highlighting what their amenities are right in that ad search ad copy in order to either generate that call, extension call, or a call after someone visits the landing page. Optimizing search campaigns for local, again, a no-brainer. I hope, I don't want to insult anybody if you guys are local search experts, but I did want to cover a couple of these fundamentals that I hope everyone is taking advantage of. The first obviously is to use a call extension with a local phone number. You can see the examples here. Local numbers do get 3 times the calls in many cases as toll-free numbers. So if you're using call extensions in a localized campaign, use the local phone number. Include a location extension, obviously is a no-brainer. People are caring about the location. Use that location extension. Have offers like call-centric language. So you can see examples here in number 2. The call to action for the second ad, call your local plumbing expert. We answer calls 24/7, satisfaction guaranteed. So it's setting up that expectation that if you call us right now from this ad, we will answer right away and help you. So some techniques to consider here when you're looking to localize your search ad campaigns to drive call. Obviously, call now ads are another thing to test. They're more popular in some industries than others, like insurance, for example, are big ones for call-only ads. But if you're looking to test call-only ads, there are certain things to keep in mind. Since a call is the only conversion path, you should bid based on what the value of a call is to your business. So I showed you examples earlier of some customers of ours who know what a call from paid search is worth to them. If call-only ads only generate calls, you should bid based on what that value is to get the best ROI. You should also bid on keywords that generate calls. I know it sounds pretty obvious, but if you've done the due diligence with people visiting your website from search, for example, and you know which keywords are more likely to generate a call versus someone who's just there to look up information or download some content or watch a video or whatever it is, they're not there to call. If you know that certain keywords are more likely to generate calls, go ahead and use those for your call-only ads while saving the non-call generating keywords for your regular ad campaigns. Use ad language to incentivize a call. So you can see here, asking people to call 24/7, you'll get an immediate response, and you'll also get 10% off your service. I thought this was a very simple but great example of when to use and how to use call-only ads. So something for you to test if you're looking to drive calls from local search ads. I did want to touch on a couple targeting and landing page optimization strategies that our customers are using really across channels. These apply pretty much for search, Facebook, or for display. So we already touched on retargeting past callers from display, but you can also do that for search advertising as well as Facebook advertising. If you know someone has a history or a propensity to call you, you can optimize your ads, keywords, bids, language on your website to really incentivize that call. You can also use lookalike or similar audiences, as we talked about for display, but this works also for the other channels you're advertising on digitally, to find those people who look like people who have called you before and then show them, those specific ads, specific landing pages, specific calls to action to get them to call. Custom audiences is a really interesting feature that Facebook came out with, and now you can use it for search as well, where if somebody filled out, you've got someone who filled out a form on your website, for example, you've captured all their contact information. If they didn't become a customer after filling out a form, you can target them specifically through search or Facebook or display with calls to action to get them to call you and engage with your sales rep to become a customer. So maybe they filled out a form, you weren't able to, they didn't complete a quote, or they requested a quote but didn't follow up on it, or your salesperson was not able to contact them after repeated attempts. Try to drive that conversion through your digital ads by incentivizing them to call you. Optimizing your landing pages to drive calls, of course, is a no-brainer. I touched on an example earlier from Dish, but here are some other general examples you can use depending on what your industry is and the experience on your website. But if you've got multiple locations or agents and you have a search functionality on your website, it's a no-brainer to add clickable call buttons for each of those locations, so people can drive an immediate conversion when they're looking up a store or a dealership or an insurance agent, for example. Putting prominent call numbers or call buttons on every page of your website is also a no-brainer. Unlike web forms that take up space, like you can see in example 3, you can see how in example 2, it's very easy to have a call button on every single page of your website. It takes up minimal real estate, and it can help drive calls from any page of your site. You can transform your site into really a call conversion generating vehicle from anywhere, and it's very easy. Example number 3, which I touched on, I know there are certain campaigns, content campaigns, request a demo campaigns, request a quote campaigns, where you're going to want people to fill out a form, which is great, but it doesn't hurt to have that call example here like Salesforce does. Do you have any questions? Call us at this number. Make that a clickable number, as they did here. Someone can call to get that immediate conversion. So you might have sent somebody to a form where they weren't really interested in filling out the form. They actually have a question. They want to engage. Make it easy for them. And the last example is similar to the dish example. This one is State Farm, where we're talking about just having that really prominent call now, call to action right in the middle, up front. That is the call to action for your campaign if you're looking to drive calls. I would definitely test that to see how well that works for your specific business and industry. But if you value calls, it is certainly one way to go about doing it. So tips for how to drive more good calls from digital marketing. We talked earlier about some customer examples of ours, how they're using data and insights from calls to generate good calls. Now, good calls for you depends on your business. It may be a sale right away over the phone. It may be an appointment. It may be a test drive at a dealership. Whatever it is, it may just be a sales opportunity if you're a B2B company. Someone's not going to buy on that first phone call, but if they call in and engage with you, you can set up that next action. Whatever a good call is, you can optimize for that. So like I showed earlier with that large automaker, they were passing call data to their CRM. They knew which calls were driving the most good calls. And once you know that, it's very easy to optimize for the channel of ads, keywords, and web content driving those calls. But you can also optimize for other variables like days of the week or times of day or geographic location. So if you are running a paid search ad campaign in multiple locations, if you know that, say, in Chicago, this campaign is going to generate calls, during lunch hour, make sure your ads are front and center by bidding up for those times while minimizing perhaps other times of the day or days of the week. It just makes sense. There's a wide variety of call data to capture to help you know how to drive those better calls, those good calls. You should also integrate your call conversion data in your MarTech tools. So some of the popular ones that our customers use, I put up here, but really look at your marketing stack that you use, the tools you use to optimize, analyze, measure digital advertising or any marketing. Pass the call data in there as well, and so you can really optimize and analyze for the entire customer journey, online and offline. One example here, and this is not for everybody, it really depends on your industry, but we have certain customers where they're only interested in using marketing dollars to drive new callers, first-time callers. So for example, you might be in an industry where once somebody calls you and becomes a customer, after that, they're no longer a marketing lead when they call in. They're calling in for customer support. They're calling in to report a claim. They're calling in, to change the times of a meeting if they're, for a child tutoring service, for example. So, but maybe they're doing a search for you and they're clicking on your call extension ad in order to call you for a support or non-sales related issue. So if you only integrate call data from new callers, the calls you really value, then you're really optimizing your marketing campaigns and digital advertising for the leads, the calls that matter most to you. So all those other ones you're throwing out, and you're just seeing the campaigns driving that are most successful at driving first-time new callers, and then you can optimize based on that. I gave DoubleClick here as an example for the platform to feed this data into, but really you can feed it into any of the platforms that you use where this data would be valuable. So personalizing the in-call experience to close more sales. I like this tip. It may not be for everyone, but I talked about all this data that you're capturing around the call. A lot of that data, the marketing source, the callers, the call ID, the location of the caller geographically, all that data is captured at the time of the call. So when that call is generated, you know that call. So our customers, many of them are using that call data to inform how those calls are routed or prioritized. So for example, we have a customer who likes to prioritize calls from paid search. They have a special call queue where any call from paid search gets put directly into that queue, bypassing the general queue, because they want those calls to be got to immediately, because they are the ones proven to drive the most sales. You can also change how your calls are routed. So marketing can control, if you've got a ton of locations, for example, you know where the caller is calling from, you can route that call immediately to their closest dealership or closest store or your closest insurance agent to help them. Getting somebody to the right person fast has been proven to help convert more of these callers to sales. So you can do that using the call data you're getting at the time of the call. You can also give sales agents a heads up about who's calling and why. So again, if you know the search terms that somebody used before clicking on, before converting on one of your paid search ads, for example, you can pass that data to your sales agent before they answer the phone, so they know before they pick up why this person's calling, what search keywords, what web page they're calling from, where in the country they're calling from, and that data can be used to really help inform that conversation. That sales agent can use that data to have a better conversation, personalize the call from the get-go to help convert that caller to a sale. It's a much more seamless experience, someone calling from your web page, that you know what they're calling about, get right into it by passing that data to your sales agent. So there are a bunch of ways to analyze call quality. So it's, I had a couple earlier with the last example where you're integrating call data into your CRM. But you can also do things like, perhaps you're an agency and you don't have access to a CRM, or perhaps you are a franchisor who is responsible for generating calls to a ton of franchisees. You don't know what happens, you don't have any access to what happens on the calls you're sending to them. You can measure the call duration. So you can generate reports about how, for each marketing source, paid search, the keyword, the channel, whatever it is, you can see, okay, now I know how, I know that which channels are driving the highest, the longest calls. You can then say, okay, the longer the call, it might be more indicative of a better, higher quality lead. I'm going to invest more of my money in the channels driving the longest calls. You can also record the calls if you want to, and drill into some of those as well to understand what's really happening on phone conversations. And it's important to do that because there are several really key things that as marketers we can learn from analyzing what happens on the calls we're generating from our marketing. For example, if you're looking to get some validation around the SEO and SEM keywords you're optimizing on, you can see if those words are actually being used by callers or if they're using other words. You can also help do a little bit of monitoring of the sales agents or the franchises or business locations. Are your calls that you're sending to them from your marketing being answered? Are people saying the right thing? Are agents mentioning the right promotion? You can get marketing. This is all data that marketing can use and should use in order to improve the caller experience in order to convert more callers to sales. And one technology, this will be the last thing I touch on before we get to the Q&A, but one technology you should be aware of if you're not already is keyword spotting. So I picked one example of a customer of ours who's a national home services provider. So here's an example where they're interested in learning from paid search, all the calls they've generated in the last 30 days from paid search to a specific office, in this case their Chicago office. How many of those calls is the caller using the word appointment? Now, once they do that search, they can see in the back there every call where that happens, where the word appointment is used for that criteria is listed, and then the marketer here can drill into each call and see exactly where the word was used and in what context. So obviously, if you're generating thousands or hundreds or thousands of calls a month to franchisees or locations or even to a call center, as marketers, you just don't have time to listen to recordings of every call, but you can use this keyword spotting, and I'll go back to show you again. You can use this keyword spotting tool in order to run searches through all these captured conversations to find the ones that really bubbled up to the surface, the ones that are interesting to drill back into and learn from. So I hope that was of interest to you. I know I went very fast and provided a lot of data and examples. If you're interested, again, in learning more about the DialogTech call attribution platform, please visit our website, give us a call, and we'll be happy to give you a personalized demo.
Okay, great. So we'll go ahead and wrap up. I want to thank Blair for conducting today's webinar, and thanks to everyone who attended today as well. If you have any questions or want to be connected with Blair, simply email us at webinars@thelsa.org. And if you want to, for a look at what's coming up in terms of webinars, you can visit www.thelsa.org/webinars. So with that, thanks everyone and have a great day.